We agreed with Arab partners that we cannot end the conflict without a plan for the post-conflict, something that we're working on intensely.
And I'm wondering why the U.S. hasn't been able to be more influential in guiding Israel's actions in these conflicts. At this point, does the U.S. Israel alliance benefit Israel more than it does the United States?
First, let me say this. As I'm sure you're all tracking, we're in the final stages of securing a ceasefire agreement for Lebanon. We're not there yet, but I believe we are in the final stages. This has been an intensive diplomatic by the United States, partners like France, working with Israel, working with Lebanon over many months. And if we get to the conclusion that I hope we reach very soon, it will make a big difference. It will make a big difference in saving lives and livelihoods in Lebanon and in Israel. It will make a big difference in creating the conditions that will allow people to return to their homes safely in northern Israel and in southern Lebanon. And I also believe that by de-escalating tensions in the region, it can also help us to end the conflict in Gaza. In particular, Hamas will know that it can't count on other fronts opening up in the war. So, we're tracking this very closely, and I hope and believe that we can get this over the finish line. We also spent time discussing the opportunity and indeed the necessity to end conflicts in the Middle East and lay the foundation for a more durable peace now that Israel has achieved its strategic goals in the wake of October 7th. In Gaza, we remain committed to bringing the hostages home and ending the humanitarian crisis that Gaza's children, women, and men are facing every single day. We agreed with Arab partners that we cannot end the conflict without a plan for the post-conflict, something that we're working on intensely as we speak. We also reiterated deep concern with Iran's nuclear activities and continued failure to cooperate fully with the IAEA. Thank you, and with that, happy to take some questions.
First question will go to Shannon Kingston from ABC.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. As you said, a 60-day ceasefire deal in Lebanon appears imminent, but in 60 days you won't be in office anymore. Do you plan to work with the incoming Trump administration to ensure that this truce can really turn into a lasting peace? And the White House has said that this deal can lead to a ceasefire in Gaza, but for almost a year it seems that nothing has moved the needle with Hamas. So what makes you think that this will convince the group to turn over the hostages it's holding?
Great. First, yes, we're absolutely committed to working with the incoming administration on this issue and everything that we're dealing with. I had a good conversation with my successor to be, Senator Rubio, the other day. I look forward to meeting with him and to going over in detail exactly where we are and where we hope we can go, or if we haven't been able to complete the work, the next administration can go. And having that continuity and being able to hand off to the next administration the strongest possible hand to play in bringing peace and bringing security is exactly what I'm focused on. When it comes to a ceasefire, assuming we get it in Lebanon, as I said, I think this can have profound effects, not only immediately for those concerned, that is to say, people in Lebanon and Israel, who are facing a barrage of missiles and mortars and rockets every single day, saving lives, saving livelihoods, creating the conditions so that people can return to their homes in northern Israel and in southern Lebanon. 70 to 80,000 people displaced in northern Israel, an equal or even greater number displaced in southern Lebanon. But yes, in terms of Gaza itself, I also think this can have a significant impact. Why is that? Because one of the things that Hamas has sought from day one is to get others in on the fight, to create multiple fronts, to make sure that Israel was having to fight in a whole series of different places. And as long as it's thought that that was possible, that's one of the reasons it's held back from doing what's necessary to end the conflict. Now, if it sees that the cavalry is not on the way, that may incentivize it to do what it needs to do to end this conflict. Now, we have two things that are essential. One is getting the hostages back, including the 7 Americans. But we also need to make sure that in order to end the conflict, we have a clear plan for what follows the conflict. that enables the people of Gaza to move forward with their lives without Hamas and with Israel having pulled out of Gaza. We spent some time here, just as we have in past weeks and months, working on that plan, and that too is something that we'll be working on intensely over the coming weeks and talking to the incoming administration about.
Julia Pompili with El Folio.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. My question is about what could be the coordinated response that you discussed today regarding the escalation of North Korean troops in Russia, since apparently this sanction policy didn't work. And the same question is about China, the Chinese support to the Russian basic industries. What could be the response of G7 in addition to condemnation? Thank you so much.
By the aggression against Ukraine, seen us, but you've to play. In the absence of that, and why is that? Ukraine, but what Russia is these are undoubtedly steps that in Europe and for many countries in Asia. The Deep Council, I think would all.
Hi, Mr. Secretary.
Evening.
Do you think the European consensus on support for Ukraine will
With one decision.
Hi, Mr.
Its influence to try to bring this to an end?
Christina Ruffini with one decision.
Do you think the European consensus on support for Ukraine will hold if the next administration pulls back from that effort? Can it survive without the full-throated support of America and particularly the American president? And I know you've been in meetings, I don't know if you've seen the images, but the Beirut skyline is currently littered with smoke plumes from heavy Israeli bombardment. Can you confirm the U.S. was only informed of that operation after it was in progress? And I'm wondering why the U.S. hasn't been able to be more influential in guiding Israel's actions in these conflicts. At this point, does the U.S. Israel alliance benefit Israel more than it does the United States? Thank you.
Good. Thanks. Let me take the second part first. I'll come to Ukraine and Europe in a minute. I think what you're seeing every day, that is rockets, missiles going in both directions, only underscores how urgent it is to get the ceasefire. Yes, we're seeing these attacks in Beirut directed against Hezbollah, but every single day, Hezbollah has been launching projectiles into Israel, into northern Israel, as it's done virtually every day since October 7th, which is how this problem started. So again, I'm not going to speak to that. We've been focused on trying to see that this ceasefire agreement gets over the line and gets implemented. That's what's going to make the biggest difference. Look, we've been very clear also from day one that for the United States, we have a number of objectives in the Middle East. One is to make sure that we do everything we can to support Israel in its efforts to make sure that October 7th never happens again. Second, to do everything we can to make sure that the conflict doesn't spread. We don't have more open fronts, more open conflicts, which will simply endanger more lives and more livelihoods and create more suffering. And we've had some significant success in actually doing that, despite many, many challenges and many moments when this easily could have escalated into a regional war. And third has been to do everything we possibly can to help people who are caught in the middle of this horrific crossfire, crossfire instigated by Hamas on October 7th. And that goes to the work that we've done on getting more humanitarian assistance more effectively to people who need it, to trying to get better protections for civilians who are caught in this. And while we absolutely must see more done on that front, it's also fair to say that what we've seen to date would not have happened without U.S. engagement, without U.S. determination. So we're intensely focused on this. We will be till the last day of this administration.
Final question, Cecilia Scaldafari with AGI.
Thank you. As you said, there is great hope for an Israeli green light to the ceasefire agreement on Lebanon, but there are also concerns about how Israel could react to a violation. So what kind of guarantees have you given to it?
So I'm not going to speak to what's in the agreement that is before Israel and before Lebanon. I can say as a general matter that, of course, by definition, Israel will always have the right to deal with challenges or threats to its security, just as any country has that right. But what I believe we have the possibility now of achieving is something that had not been the case up until now, which is the effective implementation of UN Security Council Resolution 1701. Now, why is that important? Well, let's remember just a little bit of history. Israel was in southern Lebanon for 18 years. It got out in 2000. Hezbollah came further to the fore. There was another conflict in 2006. And when Israel ended that conflict as a result of Hezbollah's aggression, the international community, through the Security Council, said we have to have some means of preventing this from happening again, and in particular, through Resolution 1701, making sure that Hezbollah would not be in a position to carry out more attacks against Israel. Unfortunately, 1701 was never effectively implemented. And the result has been Hezbollah has remained in a position where it could attack Israel. And as I said, on October 8th, the day after October 7th, it again launched these attacks on Israel to such an extent that Israelis were forced out of their homes in northern Israel. Now, what we've worked on for many months now was getting an agreement between Israel and Lebanon on the effective implementation of 1701 that would result in the withdrawal of any Israeli forces in Lebanon, the withdrawal of Hezbollah to the north such that it couldn't threaten Israel, the deployment of the Lebanese armed forces, so critical to the security of the state, to southern Lebanon, as well as UNIFIL, and an oversight mechanism to make sure that the agreements any agreements are being carried out and fulfilled. So, if this is finally agreed, and if this goes forward, it is the answer to the problem that has bedeviled the area for a couple of decades, and is the best way to guarantee that there is peace, there is stability, and this constant threat of attack from Hezbollah, which has caused people to leave their homes, kids to not be able to go to school, is over. People can return, just as people who've been displaced in southern Lebanon can return to their homes. So that's in the immediate what's at stake, as well as I think the larger ramifications of getting an agreement, including what I believe can be very positive effects on also ending the conflict in Gaza. Thank you.